Oh, hello. It's been a while since we spoke. And I know you may be thinking, why? Why? Why have I not heard from you for a bit? And to be honest, that answer is pretty complicated. As we all know, things got pretty complicated in 2020. No Marvel movies and shows came out. I was dealing with some personal things, but here we are. And, I was thinking about coming back earlier for the stage 4 stuff, but again with some personal things going on and with what was going on stage 4 or phase 4 rather, I thought it'd be appropriate just to do it all together, and I'm really glad I did. So obviously stage 4 has been controversial to say the least, and I think that's been designed because when we last left off in 2019, we just had the big ending of the first three phases of Marvel. Thanos died, Captain America died, probably, and Tony Stark died, probably. So, yeah, where do we go from there? And I think the last phase of Marvel, Phase 4, has shown us something really important. And as we could all guess, it's grief. But more importantly, what I want to talk to you today about is the power of grief. Now, I know you might be thinking, what do you mean by the power of grief? Isn't grief like a necessarily a bad thing? And not necessarily. Obviously, I'm not going to go to the stages of grief because if you read your basic college and or high school psychology book, you can look it up and see it there, yada 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 yada. I'm more focused on talking about grief because in a sense of a power, because one, we're talking about superheroes and powers, but also when we talk about grief, we usually see it as a negative thing. And I think stage 4 or phase 4, I don't know why I keep saying stage 4. Maybe of a video game. Who knows? Dun dun. No, I can't use that. That's copyright. Anyways, the point is, yeah, grief can see us as seen as a superpower. So specifically, I want to talk about three projects from Marvel in Phase 4. Specifically, WandaVision, Spider-Man No Way Home, and most recently, Black Panther 2. So, yeah, let's start with WandaVision. Chronologically, because it was the first Marvel project to be released after the events of 2020, and because I think that's a really good touching point for grief. When we last left Wanda, obviously she was just helping finish off Thanos, and it leads to her. Oh, by the way, sorry, I know we're kind of jumping back and forth, but we're improvising here. Cameraman, do your magic trick afterwards. But basically, yeah, you're gonna get spoiled for all three projects I'm gonna talk about today. So, WandaVision, 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 wait, that's copyright too. God damn it. WandaVision. Yeah, she's dealing with the grief of not only losing vision, of course, but also her whole life's turned upside down. We get a really good perspective as to the life she envisioned we're living and had been planning to live. And obviously, with vision being gone, presumably, that's changed. And, what we see Wanda do in dealing with grief is primarily denial. I mean, the whole TV show is her making turning a town into her own TV show, and it's about her denying what happened. I mean, she literally makes another vision deny what happens to cope with her grief. And obviously, we have Vision's famous line that I'm not going to show or say here because of copyright purposes. But if you've seen it, you know which line I'm talking about. And personally, it hit me very hard because, as I said, on a global scale, we were dealing with the events of 2020. And on a personal scale, I was dealing with some loss too. And I really had a hard time dealing with it because when we talk about grief, we always talk about someone passing on and stuff like that. And I don't think we really focus on what that means for us. Understandably, when we would pay tribute to those who are gone and stuff like that. But what we don't do is we don't take time to think about like where that leaves us. And in my real life form, I've worked in that field. I've worked with people who've had to deal with people who have lost, and who they've lost and who've passed away. And WandaVision shows us that grief at the core of it is pain. because of the people who we love are no longer here with us. And it comes from the fact that we still love those folks, even if they're no longer here with us. And so, in the show, if you notice, Wanda really becomes, although she becomes powerful to take over the town, it's not until she comes to terms with her grief to a certain degree, that she becomes more powerful and she's able to come to terms with the fact that, hey, you know what, that her love for Vision's still there and that she grows a little bit. And interesting enough, it leads into Multiverse of Madness, which I think is underrated because, you can see that even though she still grew, she did grow, she still had more to go. And I think that's the thing we forget about grief. It's not a linear process. Grief takes time. Grief can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can hop between cycles. And so with WandaVision and the Multiverse of Madness, we see that because clearly she's still dealing with grief and stuff like that. And so once again in the Multiverse of Madness, she has to come to terms with it. And there's a line I think a lot of people miss where the alternative multiverse Wanda, I'm not going to remember and I can't say which one it is because I don't have my computer in front of me. And also, I just don't want to look it up. I'm kind of lazy like that. She says, ultimately, to paraphrase, because again, I do not want to be sued by a certain mouse's lawyers, that, even though the person that we want is lost, we love is no longer here with us in whatever capacity, they will be loved. And again, not going to use the song from Maroon 5 because it's a bit of a creep and also copyright purposes. YouTube is fun. But anyways, yeah, so I think what we see here, again, like we see Wanda grow in power when she really comes to terms with it. And I think that really shows that. So, yeah, just we see that with her. And then to Spider-Man No Way Home, which I also think is a hidden gem because I know people get caught up in that, oh, spoiler alert, Toby and Andrew coming back. We see that too because Peter tries to bargain with Doctor Strange, and then, with all these different things to try to make things be as it was. And I think we definitely see that with what happened at the events of 2020. We want things to be back to the way it was in 2019, and we just realized that's not going to happen. And if you notice in the movie, the more Peter fights it, the more Peter fights the change, the more it continues to backfire on him. And so ultimately, he loses his aunt, his best friends, and his life. He doesn't go to college and stuff like that. He has to hit the reset button. But it's also at that point that he does the most growth where, besides beating Green Goblin, by the way, Willem Dafoe, GOAT, man. With that fight, he whipped that ass, just really, really top tier stuff. And so he doesn't lift building and stuff like that, but he's willing to, he gets the strength to really take a step back and make a mature decision to step away from MJ and Ned. And that's a superpower because coming back to WandaVision, grief is being able to let go of our expectations, want of what we want, and to come to terms to accept how things are and to grow from it. And Peter can still miss and be sad about not having his life anymore, but he's able to start a new life, and I'm excited to see where they go with that. Obviously, they're probably going to do a college trilogy unless Sony decides to mess that up, but hey, it's Morbin time, so we'll see. And the last movie I want to talk about was most recently Black Panther 2. I'm going to take a less comedic view about this just because obviously it deals with the real life loss of Chadwick Boseman. And yeah, obviously the very first 5 minutes of the movie was pretty intense, and it hit pretty close to home as, again, in my real life form. What happened was very common in what I was dealing with my professional life and my personal life to various degrees. So that hit home, man. Yeah, in Black Panther 2, we see Shuri deal with pain because, pain can come in different ways. It can come in anger, but it could also come in denial and try to, logic her way out of it. And quite literally, she tried to with her laboratory, her science, but also the way she tried to talk to her mom about her grief for T'Challa. And so it's not until she's confronted it on various degrees, not just in the Michael B. Jordan scene, which was awesome to see. She was also had to confront it with her own mom's loss, and just besides being Namor at the very end, where she had a moment to reflect and really accept the fact that T'Challa was gone and how she felt about it. I think that was really powerful. And of course, I can't play the music or the lyrics here, but Rihanna did an excellent job with that song. And so, again, as we see with everybody else, Sherry really became the most powerful person or form of herself when she was able to accept and, you know, come to terms with her grief. And it doesn't mean she resolved it and stuff like that. It doesn't mean the pain of losing the Chala made it go away or stuff like that, but to come to terms with it and accept it and grow from it really shows that superheroes are not only superheroes because of their strength in terms of what they can do, but also like coming to terms with it. And that's a superhero power that we all have. The human spirit is one of the things that Stan Lee and the rest of the Marvel writers and creators did really well, is they captured the resiliency of the human spirit. And we see that with these characters, and I think that's a theme that maybe Marvel intended to convey rather. Cameraman, you better fix that, or not, but that's what I'm taking from Phase 4. I mean, we could talk about other projects like Moon Knight, Loki, the other Marvel movies and projects, but I really want to focus on that because I feel like, to me, and again, this is just my personal opinion. You're taking the opinion of a Lego character, so take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, that to me were the really top tier examples of grief being a superpower and growing from it. And so yeah, that's kind of my little spiel on that. So thank you if you've still here this far. Thank you so much. And I want to give a couple announcements. So obviously today is January 10th. I'm not so good with the maps, but yes, January 10th. I am going to be working on a few projects. I am currently working on a documentary sort of style project called 13, and it's going to be going through kind of like the real life form of my experiences through the events of 2020, which I'm not going to get into too much here because I want to save it for that, but also do not want YouTube to demonetize me, although they might already because I said two very bad words. And I'm also going to be going back to doing reviews of Marvel projects, starting with Ant-Man in February, so keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's it for this channel. And I just want to say on a personal level, I know the last 3 years of everything going on has been very difficult. We've all lost a lot of things. A lot of things have changed for us, whether it's the people we love, maybe the way we used to live life, maybe things just didn't go out for you. And I want you to know that it is okay to feel sad about those different losses. It doesn't necessarily have to mean human death for you to feel sad. It could be any of those, any kind of loss. And that it's important for you to take a time to acknowledge how you feel, honor those feelings, and realize that although the pain of that may not necessarily go away, it doesn't necessarily have to control you, and it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. You can use and grow from that pain to change life into different ways and that you may not expect. And we said that with these Marvel stories, and we can see that with our own lives. And so I'm basically, what I'm saying is, whatever you're going through, it's inside of us all to be the heroes on our own stories. And I believe that you can do that for yourself and for the people you love. So take care, stay safe. Please take the proper medical safety procedures, whether it's wearing a mask and or getting a vaccine and or washing your hands and or other things you need to do to protect yourself and others, and be the superheroes for them as well. I will be talking to you all soon. Take care. Bye.